My husband smiled while he told me to quit a $220,000 salary and move his parents into my condo. I smiled back and said okay. What he did not know was that by the next morning, bank investigators, a locksmith, and a lawyer would be standing at our front door instead of his suitcase. My name is Callie Bennett, and for 6 years I was the one paying for everything in our marriage while telling myself that if I just worked hard enough, our home would stay peaceful. That belief died over a plate of pan-seared halibut on a Tuesday night in our Chicago high-rise, the kind of ordinary dinner that ends up rewriting an entire life. I had just come off a brutal video call about a $75 million ski resort project I was leading, the kind of project that could make me vice president of the entire Midwest division. My husband, Marcus Holt, sold commercial drywall for a living, earning somewhere around $50,000 most years while I covered the mortgage, the taxes, the car payments, and every bill in between. That night, he set his phone face down on the table and told me his parents were moving in from Michigan permanently, that I would need to clear out my home office for them, and that I was not going to be working anymore anyway. I asked him to repeat himself, certain I had misheard. He said it again, calm as ever, telling me my salary was not needed because we had savings, the condo was paid off, and a real man measured his worth through leadership, not paychecks. He said his father believed the more money a woman earned, the harder she became to control. I sat there in silence, finally understanding that he did not want me to quit because he cared about my exhaustion. He wanted me gone from my career because my success embarrassed him in front of his family. 3 days earlier, I had learned I was being considered for that promotion, a title I had spent 12 years earning through freezing job sites and boardrooms full of men who doubted me. Marcus wanted me to throw it away over dinner without ever once asking what I wanted for myself. When I asked how he knew the exact balance in my savings account, he froze for half a second before snapping that a husband had a right to know everything in the house. That was the moment I remembered the 3 failed login attempts my bank had flagged on my account the day before, attempts I had blamed on my own clumsy typing. They had not been mine. Then he slid his phone across the table, a photo of a 4-bedroom house in an upscale suburb listed at $1.5 million, a house his parents loved, a house he had already toured with his father while telling me he was visiting an injured coworker. He explained that we would sell my condo, drain my savings, and if we came up short, take out a mortgage, and that the deed on the new house would carry his name alone, because a man could never hold his head up living under his wife's roof. I laughed, a hollow sound I barely recognized as my own, and asked why his name and not both of ours. He told me if we started dividing whose money belonged to whom, there would be no room left for love, then accused me of being selfish for even asking the question. I thought about the $25,000 I had loaned his sister Bree for her boutique, the $18,000 I had paid for his father's knee surgery, all the years I had been the invisible foundation holding his family up while he painted himself as some silent, sacrificing martyr. I did not argue. I picked up my fork, took a bite of cold risotto, and told him, okay, I would quit. His whole face lit up, and he called his father immediately, right in front of me, bragging that women just needed a man to put his foot down. Through the speaker, his father told him to wire $75,000 in earnest money the very next morning. I smiled and said nothing, because that night, once Marcus was asleep, I sat alone in my office until 3 a.m, changing every password, backing up every deed, forwarding my financial history to a lawyer, and quietly reviewing an audio recording I had started on my watch the moment dinner began. I called Ray Doyle, a lawyer I had known for years, and told him I wanted a divorce. But first I needed him to check something. I had found a photo on Marcus' phone of a guarantor document tied to a $600,000 business loan, my forged signature sitting on the final line, the borrower listed as his sister Bree, the collateral listed as my condo. At 4:30 the next morning, I dressed and waited in the quiet kitchen, the smell of cold halibut still lingering from the night before. By 6, Ray arrived with 2 officials from the bank, carrying a file that confirmed everything I feared. My signature had been forged, the loan application submitted through Marcus as coordinator, my home offered up as collateral without my knowledge. I signed the paperwork freezing the loan and requesting a fraud investigation. Just as I lifted the pen from the final page, the bedroom door opened, and Marcus stood there in his wrinkled pajamas, staring at the strangers filling our kitchen. When he realized what the documents were, his fear turned instantly to rage. He insisted spouses signed for each other all the time, that no real crime had occurred since the money was never actually released. One of the bank officials told him plainly that forging a signature on a federal loan application was a felony, regardless of whether the funds ever moved. Marcus looked at me like I was a stranger who had broken into his own home. "You went through my phone," he said. I did not deny it. "You forged my name," I answered, and watched every excuse die in his throat. Movers and a locksmith arrived soon after. I had every item belonging to Marcus packed, and the locks changed before his parents even reached the building. When they stepped off the elevator dragging suitcases, ready to move into a life they believed was already paid for, they found a lawyer, bank investigators, and a stranger drilling a new deadbolt into their son's front door instead of a warm welcome. His father, Grant, screamed that I had lost my mind. That family mattered more than paperwork, until my lawyer calmly explained that our condo had never been marital property to begin with, since I bought it years before the wedding even happened. His mother tried tears next, the same tears that used to soften me for years, folding to the floor and wailing about her miserable life. For the first time, those tears landed on absolutely nothing. In the middle of the chaos, Bree's phone rang, and panic swept across her face as she silenced it. When it rang again, the caller ID read the name of the loan broker who had helped process the fraudulent paperwork, and Bree finally cracked under the pressure, blurting out that Marcus had told her to sign whatever he handed her and promised me I would never find out. That single sentence turned the hallway into a courtroom right there in front of the neighbors. Marcus rounded on his sister in panic, and their father tried to grab the phone before it could say anything else. Police arrived minutes later for the forgery complaint, reviewing the audio recording from dinner, the photo of the contract, and my property deed, standing in that hallway, surrounded by his family screaming over each other. I finally asked Marcus the only question that mattered. What about me? He had no answer. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I had heard in 6 years of marriage. I told him I was no longer the woman who apologized when she had done nothing wrong, and for the first time since I had known him, he looked at me like he had never actually seen me before. The officers took him in for questioning on the fraud charges, his father still shouting threats down the hallway as they left. His mother collapsed against the doorframe, sobbing about her son. I walked back into my own condo, my condo, and watched the locksmith finish the last deadbolt while the movers taped shut the final box of clothes that no longer belonged in my life. In the weeks that followed, Marcus took a plea deal on the forgery charge, avoiding prison but accepting a heavy fine, probation, and a restitution order to cover the legal costs of the fraud investigation. His father faced separate charges for his role coordinating the loan scheme, and his sister was ordered to repay the money she had borrowed under false pretenses. When Marcus called me from a number I did not recognize, crying, insisting he still loved me and that his father had poisoned his thinking, I listened until he finished. Then I told him I no longer hated him, but a broken mirror does not reflect the same image no matter how much glue you use. And I let our lawyers finish the divorce without another word between us. 3 days after the papers were signed, my company confirmed what I had spent 12 years working toward. I was promoted to vice president of the Midwest Division, the $75 million resort project moving forward under my name, earned through my own work instead of survived through someone else's scheme. I renovated my condo until nothing of Marcus remained inside it, expanded my home office with a clear view of the lake, and started hosting quiet Sunday dinners with my parents again, the kind of dinners where nobody asked me to disappear. Standing at that window months later, watching the boats cross the dark water below, I realized the weight I had carried in my chest on the night he told me to quit had finally disappeared, replaced by something I had almost forgotten how to feel, peace that belonged entirely to me and to no one else. If Callie's story reminded you that kindness should never be mistaken for weakness, hit like, tell me in the comments what you would have done in her place, and subscribe to the Revenge Tales so you never miss the next story like this one.